Hey everybody, so we are going to start with volume of rectangular prisms. So I have about 4 examples for you on this worksheet. If you are not able to print this worksheet, then just go ahead and pause the video and draw the figures before we start to work out on everything. And then once you have everything labeled and drawn, then you can go back and restart the video with me and you can work on everything alongside of it, because it really is helpful if you have the shapes with you. So the first thing I want to talk about is the formula for volume of rectangular prisms. So remember, volume is big B times H. Now big B is super important. This does not mean just base. It has a very specific meaning. Okay, so I want you to write area of the base. Okay, so big B actually means area of the base, and then you would do that multiplied times your height, which is H. Okay, so that's the formula to just find volume of rectangular prisms. We want to do the area of the base times the height. Now, area of the base is super important because it's actually a formula. Okay, so big B is big baby, and big babies need formula. So it's kind of a little thing we use to memorize what big B is. So area of the base is actually a formula. And for this formula, I like to just say we could say base times height. Okay, so we want to figure out, well, what is the area of the base? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab a colored pencil. And let's just say that the bottom over here and the top, let's say this is a room and that's the floor and the ceiling. Okay, those are our bases. Now, it's not always going to be bottom and the top or floor and ceiling because really rectangular prisms are a little tricky. So if you have two sides that are parallel to each other that will never touch and they're the exact same, they could be your bases. So these are your bases, or these two sides could be the bases, or the front and the back could be the bases. But I'm just going to say it's the floor and the ceiling. So I want to figure out what is the area of the base for this rectangle. So we could say this is my base and this is my height. So what I want to do first is I want to do 22 times 5. And we can do that over here on the side. 22 times 5. Well, you know that's 10. Carry the 1. 10 plus 1 is 11. So my area of the base is 110 feet squared. Okay, so we figured out what big B is, but we're not exactly done just yet. So remember that you have one layer, that's your base, but it's a 3D problem. It's not a flat picture anymore. You have that third element, which is called the height. So we want to do whatever this is, which is 110, times how many layers, or times our height, which is 8. So I'm going to do 110 times 8. I don't know, I kind of got a little messy over here, but I'm just going to go up here and do 110 times 8. So 0 times 8 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. And 1 times 8 is 8. So I've done my area of the base, big B, times my height. So the total volume of this rectangular prism is 880 feet cubed. And the reason that it's a little 3 is because we're talking about volume. It's a third dimension, okay? So that 3-dimensional volume is 880 feet cubed. So if I'm going too fast, you can go ahead and pause the video, rewind, do whatever you need to do just to catch up with me. Make sure you get these notes down. I'll be a little bit more organized on the next problem. So on example number 2, or rectangle number 2 right here, I'm going to change it up and I'm going to say the bases are actually the sides of the rectangle. So I'm going to color it in. Let's say these two sides are my bases. Okay, so remember the formula is area of the base times the height. Big B means area of the base. And to find the area of the base, I have to find the area of this rectangle. So to find the area of the rectangle, you do base times the height. Okay, so remember that, or length times width, either way you want to say it. So we want to do 12 times 3. And I'm not actually going to solve it just yet. Let's just say I'm writing it out. So I find my area of the base by doing 12 times 3. And then let's say I want to continue and find the volume. So we could say after that I would do 9 times 9 because that's my height. So the area of the base would be 12 times 3, and then I would multiply that answer times the height of the prism, so times 9. So then essentially all you're doing is multiplying all three numbers, and that's the great thing about rectangular prisms is you don't have to divide or anything. You just get to do length times width times height. That's really all that it is. So if you want to write this extra little formula, volume is actually also length times width times height. And this is just rectangular prisms. When we move on to different prisms, it gets a little bit more complicated, but this is what we're doing so far. So if I calculate it out, 12 times 3 is 36, and I just want to do 36 times 9. So let's go ahead and solve it. 6 times 9 is 54, carry the 5. 3 times 9 is 27. 27 plus 5 is 35. No, I'm sorry, it's 32. Sorry guys, it's 32. Okay, so our final answer, or the volume for this rectangular prism, would be 324, and we have meters, so I put a little m to the third power because it's volume and it's cubed or three-dimensional. So go ahead and pause the video, catch up with me, and even if you have some colored pencils, that would be great to shade your bases, or you can just use your pencil and color it in. But pause, kind of catch up, and then you can move on to the third problem with me. Okay, so now we have a cereal box. It's not so easy to see through, but we can still label our bases. Let's say I'm going to say it's the top and the bottom. So I have a top here and the bottom. You can't really see it, but I'm assuming it's down here. So remember, formula is area of the base times the height, or I'm going to write that second formula that we can also memorize, length times width times height. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and figure out what's the area of the base first. So I want to know what is my big B, my area of the base. Well, I labeled your bases. It's the top and the bottom. So if I found the area of the base, I would just do the base times the height of that bottom figure, the bottom shape, the rectangle. So I would just do 2 times 7. So our area of the base is 14. Okay? But remember, to find volume, then you have to multiply it times the height. Okay? So our volume would be 14 times our height is 15. Okay? Because that's the distance between the bases. So now I just want to go over and do 15 times 14. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 2 is 6. Remember, chicken scratch, lay an egg, so you cross it out and you have to add a 0 before you can move on. 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 1 is 1. So then I add everything up. And my volume for the cereal box is 210 inches cubed. Remember that little 3 because it's a three-dimensional problem. Okay? Go ahead and pause the video, then you can move on to the last problem with me. Alright, so make sure you pause the video because I know you don't have this printed if you cannot print it. Pause the video, write down this problem. It says a rectangular fish tank is 14 inches wide by 8 inches long by 12 inches high. What is the amount of water that the fish tank can hold? Okay, so pause the video, write this down, and then I'm going to start drawing the fish tank. And I am not an artist, so do not judge me for my drawings. It's probably as good as it's going to get. So let's just say that's a fish tank. So I have, it's 14 inches wide. It's 8 inches long. And let's just say 12 inches high. I didn't exactly get my dimensions right, but it's good enough. It's just a drawing. So these are one of those things. I just want to know what's the volume. How much fills up the entire fish tank. So this is one of those where I can just use length times width times height. And it really means the same thing as area of the base times the height, but they just want to know volume so you don't have to stop in between and multiply one at a time. You can just multiply everything at once. So, and this is 8, not 18. So all we're going to do is our length times our width times our height. So our length is 8. Our width is 14, and our height is 12. And you don't have to multiply in that order. I'm just writing it down in the order of the word problem. So you can multiply it in any order that you want, but let's go ahead and I'm just going to do the bigger numbers first because it's a little easier. So 14 times 12, so 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. Remember that chicken scratch, lay an egg. Then we can move on. 1 times 4 is 4, and 1 times 1 is 1. Add everything up. But remember, I'm not done because I didn't multiply that 8 yet, so I need to go ahead and do that now. 168 times 8. So 8 times 8 is 64. 6 times 4 is 48. Plus 6 will be 54. 1 times 8 is 8. Plus 5 would be 13. So I have a volume of 1,344 inches cubed for the fish tank. So that's about how much water that fish tank can hold. So if you have any questions, make sure you go back and watch this video. I'm also going to attach extra videos as resources on your lesson plan guide. So if this is not enough for you, there's definitely going to be more videos that you can watch to help you. Make sure after you're done with this, you can try to move on to the next assignment, and let me know if you have any questions.